following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio, streaming, and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Leanna Kersner, and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health using my top 10 sayings for going good crazy. It's a new year. Welcome to 2025, and many people, myself included, were happy to see the end of 2024. The psychology of a fresh start can be helpful, but many things in life don't get an easy reset like that, do they? Loneliness is one of those things. I was tempted to go into a data dump here to show that loneliness is a real problem and not just a personal failing. About 1 in 10 Canadians is likely feeling lonely right now. In some portions of the United States, the number can be as high as 1 in 5. But beyond that, then you start getting into culture war stuff, and the data starts getting messy because women overall are more likely to feel lonely than men, but the rate of increase in loneliness in men is higher than for women. And of course, the numbers shift throughout life as you age, right? And of course, non-binary people are left out of these statistics because, oh God, wouldn't want to study to be woke. But think about it. Being at the center of a culture war for being honest about who you are, that's a pretty lonely place, don't you think? Shout out to my non-binary friends out there. We like to slice and dice the problem of loneliness as we do all mental health statistics. And hot take here, that doesn't do any good, at least where I'm from. People at all points in their lives get lonely. And the trends that lead to loneliness later in life start when we're younger. Based on the data on Gen Z, however you want to say that letter, we better get on this because it's bad for them now. So it's going to be real rough when they're in their 50s. And it's pretty rough for people in their 50s and older right now. There's multiple parts to loneliness. Being alone doesn't mean you're lonely. And you can feel lonely in a room full of people. Frankly, that's where I felt the most lonely because they've been rooms where I knew if I said a true but unpopular thing, I'd get jumped on and the recriminations would go on for weeks. The time in my life I had the most local friends, the most number of friends locally, not scattered all around the world. The time I had the most local friends was the loneliest time in my life. There was so much drama and no space for me, what I wanted, what was important to me, and whenever I tried to matter, I got accused of being selfish. So I ended up redefining what friendship meant, and my friend count went way down. But so did the loneliness. And if you're a hustle and networking type, I don't got time for friends. It's all about the hustle, right? That can be a pretty lonely existence too. People are getting increasingly aware of transactional relationships. And if that's all you're giving, that's all you can expect to get. Executive coaches charge thousands of dollars so that executives can mask the fact that they're lonely with work-related terminology. I went there. I'm real first show of 2025, huh? Now, these habits, these masking, right? We'll get an emotional vocabulary later, but let's stay here. They get ingrained early, this stuff. Think about school and how often you got in trouble for socializing, right? Okay, COVID generation, I know you wish you had these problems. This is for your parents. A big part of school, as painful as it is learning how to get along and not get along with different types of people. Learning how to appropriately respect things about people you don't like, that's a dying art that I'd like to rehabilitate because the current paradigm is a near guarantee of loneliness, and people like Gen X, my generation and older, we had stuff, we had ish, but it's nothing like this. So, parents, older people with younger people in life, listen up, okay? These days, we're expected to decide the entirety of a person's character based on a social media post. And then we're expected to condemn them loudly and repeatedly so that everyone around us knows that we don't agree with them. It's completely messed up. And most people know it. But people keep doing it because they don't want to be ostracized for not taking a stand. I'm not kidding. This is a social media environment we live in. But it's not just social media, right? And the problem is, if you do stand up for what you believe in, you're accused of just doing it for attention by dozens of people on social media. Social media, the thing literally that's an ecosystem designed around doing things for attention. And I did mean literally, not figuratively. That's what social media is. It's a bunch of people getting attention and some people lurking. Good for you, lurkers. You're doing it right, okay? But this isn't just social media. I hear so many people go, oh, the kids need to get off social media. No, my friends. This happens in person. You get caught drinking a Pepsi, someone will give you a dressing down. Not about how it's bad for you, right? About Gaza. I'm not kidding. And you'll get the same thing if you're drinking a Coca-Cola. And why? I actually had to look this up because I was told wrong. Because Coke and Pepsi are symbols of the USA, and the USA supports Israel, so Coke and Pepsi are bad. I'm not kidding. And this isn't the only thing. We are living that show. Remember that sitcom, The Good Place, with Kristen Bell and Ted Danson? Yeah, that's become real life. And it's great to care about stuff. But busting people down for Pepsi, that's not caring. That's setting a standard that applies to nearly every branded food item out there. If you want to be held to this standard, kiss Kraft Dinner goodbye. It's partially American owned. Kraft. Tim Hortons. Co-owned by Americans now. Burger King. Yep, merger. No Timmy's, no KD. So this is not a reasonable standard, right? Never mind not reasonable. It's unhealthy. But anyone, certainly anybody under 30, but really anybody under 35, they're stuck in this paradigm right now. And they're trying to survive it. For those interested in the psychology of this stuff, this kind of thinking, the Pepsi bad because Gaza, it's called all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, or splitting. If you don't remember those terms, remember it this way. Star Wars time, right? This is Sith Lord thinking. Sith Lord thinking. Say it with me, Star Wars fans, because only a Sith deals in absolutes, right? It's absolutist thinking. Sith Lord thinking, they believe, the experts, I am not one of these people, but the people that study this stuff, they believe that Sith Lord thinking is an attempt to avoid loneliness, abandonment, and isolation. Problem is that if you're somebody who does what I do in peer counseling, you see that absolutist thinking, Sith Lord thinking, is more likely to cause loneliness, abandonment, and isolation than save you from it. Dealing in absolutes, strained relationships until they fracture. Which is why only a Sith deals in absolutes, right? Listen to Star Wars if you won't listen to me. There can only always be two Sith, right? A master and an apprentice. And that's because if one person always has to get absolutely their way, their master, like imagine if Sith Lord's like, you could only drink, some no-name cola, apprentice, right? That leaves no room for the other person's wants and needs in that relationship. And what happens to Sith masters? eventually, right? Their apprentice kills them. That's how the apprentice completes their Sith training. There's a reason for that, because in order to make and keep friends, reasonable compromises have to be made on both sides. It can't be one person compromising 95% of the time while the other person budges only occasionally and wants active credit every time. And this includes parenting. If you want your kid to socialize well with other people, teach them boundaries, but also teach them compromise. You don't have to be like hard on the rules every single time as long as you're consistent. Now, there's a lot of discussion. You've probably heard about the narcissism epidemic, but I've always had an issue with that framing of the problems we're seeing. And I think the absolutism epidemic is a more accurate description of what's going on. And it's not something that can just be ignored. You know, the way people go, well, if they're not your kind of people, just ignore them. You can't. It's so pervasive. People navigating this socialization, this social structure, you have to work your way through it. You can't just go, nah, not going to listen. It doesn't work. A young person's potential friend group is so limited by these political divides in ways, maybe if you were like hardcore into the Weather Underground in the 60s, you can get it. I don't know, but that's what it's like, right? The rest of us, yeah, sure. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, we got kicked out of places for mouthing off. But that was kind of fair. Nowadays, you can get kicked out of a group for what you don't say. The standard we had, it was fading in Gen X. But still, I remember people saying, don't talk about religion, politics, or money in polite company. That's out the window. We live in an age where people are wearing Trump ties to Christmas parties and announce they're wearing a Trump tie at the Christmas party. I'm saying this from personal experience. Yeah, that happened in Canada. And hey, if you voted for Trump and you're in Canada, that's not the issue. If you're a Canadian MAGA, hey, not the issue. Just please don't force it on people, right? The problem is that people now feel emboldened to announce this stuff, to shove it in their face, knowing it's contentious. And the people who do that are first to accuse others of doing that too, right? All this makes going out incredibly daunting. Again, this was at a Christmas party, right? Even I found myself practicing how to respond to certain social landmines over the holidays. That's hard to say. Certain social landmines. There we go, tongue twister. I totally get why people don't bother going out. Why people like, I'm just going to stay home and read A Court of Thorn and Roses for the 4th time, dreaming of being able to give everyone rude gestures while still being thought of as irresistible by cute boys. If you haven't read A Court of Thorn and Roses, that didn't make any sense. It's okay. Because those boys aren't going out either. Nobody's going out. Nobody's socializing among the younger. So what do? I'm going to start breaking down a better way to meet people and make friends. And later in the program, I'm going to show you how I'm putting skin in the game with this. If you have a story you think you're good for the show, I can speak. If you're interested in sponsoring the show and I can speak gooder than this, Leanna at Not Therapy Show is my email. NotTherapyShow.com is my website. At Not Therapy Show on socials. Welcome to my new social media. If you see a lot more content on my social media, that is the fabulous Megan behind those awesome videos and stuff. I don't even know what they're called properly. She knows all this stuff. I don't. I know when somebody's better than me at stuff. Back after the break on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Leanna Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We're still talking about meeting people and making friends. Why it's so hard and how to do it anyway. Before the break, I did a little setup of the issue, but there's still more to do there. And there's been a lot of discussion about why men have so few close friends. But again, I'm not a fan of slice and dicing the issue of loneliness. The reasons a lot of men have trouble making friends are actually pretty universal with people. It's the same core problem. Women just manifest. They mask differently. And I'm going to show you how that works with a couple of main examples. The biggest reason often cited for why men have trouble making friends, specifically men, is because all compliments have to be backhanded compliments, meaning followed by some sort of insult or just straight up insults, right? And you're supposed to know those insults are affectionate. The thing is, while we all know guys do this, women have a version of it too. It's the opposite, but it has the same problem. Women give fake compliments of the kind telling someone something looks good even though you don't think so because you're supposed to. Now, this trains women to both drop phony compliments because it's nice, but also trains women to believe that people really don't mean the compliments they give out. They just want something from you, especially men, because men don't compliment each other. So think about it. When a woman sees the men around her never complimenting each other, and then one of them compliments her, the assumption is he wants something that he can't get from men. And if he's heterosexual, you can see the problem here, right? Obviously, none of this is conducive to forming social bonds, either with the opposite sex or the same sex. But okay, let me tell you, I live by a code of sincere compliments. I have dropped that nonsense on both sides. I refuse to give a false compliment, but I also refuse to hold back on compliments for fear of being seen as weird. So I will tell a guy I like his hair, or his shirt, or his glasses, or stuff like that. I watch the belt buckle, because that's a little low, it's getting a little appropriate, but I give compliments. And most guys, at first, it's like they don't know what to do, but, the more I get to know them and the more they get used to me, they actually take it really, really well. By the time they learn I'm a complete weirdo, we're good. Now, women are trained to reject compliments so women don't get seen as narcissistic. And that means that the sincere compliments don't land. And so the problem is a really challenging one to solve. I know I actively talk myself out of internalizing compliments because I've had the rug pulled out from under me too many times by people who say the exact opposite thing about me the minute they're angry with me. And that would be fine if the person who did it ever bothered to really, really make amends. Not go, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to do, right? You know this dance, right? That's just what people do. But this is what damages relationships. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's right. First rule of making friends: be a person who gives honest compliments and measured, restrained criticism. Keep in mind that your friendly insults should be balanced with friendly praise. Is it really so hard to tell your friend they did a good job on something? Hey man, I see you're killing it out there. Is not gay. Guys, come on. Really, we can do this. And so what if it's gay? What decade is this? Anyway, the next thing that impedes social bonds is an avoidance of vulnerability. And again, we focus on men. We talk about this, but avoidance of vulnerability? No, women are just as bad. It just manifests differently, right? Women don't speak up, don't voice their opinions, don't say what they like or want because you don't want to get labeled difficult or a diva. Well, men posture to avoid vulnerability, which is more diva behavior, right? Women shrink into themselves because men don't get called divas, women do. Instead of forming a self-image based on opinions, right? It becomes based on lashes and skincare and makeup and hair and clothes, Instagram, right? Cephalopods, right? All this stuff is just girl armor. It's hiding our so-called imperfections. And this is why one of my top 10 phrases is perfect is a lie. Stop trying to be perfect. It's one thing to optimize what you have. It's another thing to hide pieces of yourself for fear of rejection. And one of the things you gotta get comfortable with when you want to make friends, like real friends, is you're gonna get embarrassed sometimes. You know, I can't think of a single really good friend I have now I didn't meet through voicing my opinions. And it's usually about strong opinions about nonsense. And I'll give you an example, right? My latest obsession, this is so cool. My latest obsession comes from the video game Dragon Age the Veilguard. Okay, new video game. My latest obsession's name is Manfred. Manfred is a skeleton butler with green jewels for eyes, and Manfred the skeleton butler is the best thing in this entire 90-hour game. I love Manfred, and you notice I am making my opinion known in a very public forum. And most people find this really funny. In fact, some friends of mine who played the game before me, they were apparently waiting for me to discover Manfred because they knew I'd have this reaction because Manfred is objectively amazing. There are other amazing parts of the game, but Manfred is the amazingness thing in the game. And then every so often, someone will be a jerk about my love of things like Manfred. And when I was younger, I was terrified of that because as a kid, older relatives tended to affectionately insult everything I liked, and I was never quite able to convince myself that they didn't really mean anything mean by it. As an adult, though, people dumping on stuff other people like is we cannot be friends territory for me because I'm a grown-up now and I get to make that call. Manfred, baby, is amazing. And it's okay if you like other characters from Dragon Age Veilguard. There is no wrong answer there, right? Your favorite character in a video game is not objectively important to the world. But it is an incredible way to share something about yourself with minimal risk. Or it should be minimal risk, right? Because people are going to have different favorites. And not having the same favorite is not the same as somebody thinking something's wrong with you for liking a character for completely innocuous reasons. But people do this. And if someone's first instinct is to dump on what you like, you can choose to not give that person additional information about you or additional time. So what do you do when someone announces their love for something you can't stand? I'm not going to name any names here because, I'll take my own advice. Ask them why they like it. I have friends who absolutely love things that I cannot stand, and I don't have to agree with their preferences to learn something about them, right? I can be happy they like it without sharing it. If you want to make friends, be a freaking friend. And being a friend, if you listen to anything in this show, listen to this, okay? Being a friend means not needing to be the smartest or most informed person in the room all of the time. And here's the reason. The smartest person in the room is not the one showing how smart they are. The smartest person in the room is the one listening more than talking because they're learning the most. Top 10 phrase, listen twice before you talk once. Manfred is a man of few words. He is wise. The third major impediment, I won't talk anymore about skeleton butlers, okay? I promise much. The third major impediment to making deep and lasting friendships is poor communication, including a limited emotional vocabulary. Unless you clearly state something, you can't expect anyone to receive the message you're not clearly stating. If you don't tell the people around you that they're important to you, that you care about them, don't expect them to know. It's hard to understand, though, what you're feeling if you don't have the words to express those emotions. And again, we talk a lot about this regarding men and boys, emotional vocabulary in men and boys, but the problem goes deeper. And clinical mental health language is making it worse, okay? Depression is a collection of over 20 different symptoms with 10 different subtypes. When one person says, I'm depressed, it can mean they're temporarily down and they'll be okay again in a few days. Whereas someone else's depression is a persistent state that's lasted 10 years. But we use the same word to describe these very different states. Anxiety is similar. If we could subdivide up anxiety, I would be very, very happy. I work with a lot of people with anxiety, and we spend a lot of time getting more specific about anxiety. Because if I said I was anxious, it would mean I'm nervous, but I'm still in control. Now, anxiety for some of the people I work with means a full-blown panic attack or absolute stark terror, right? But I have anxiety is more socially acceptable to say than my butt is clenching in terror, right? And I think that's wrong. I think if someone is butt clenched terrified, they should be able to say it. Because anxiety is such minimizing language, right? Anxiety is what you get at the flu shot, right? And as somebody who had to overcome a fear of needles, when I was freaking terrified of needles, it was not just anxiety. The word has just papered over so many other states of varying degrees of intensity. And this is part of the reason I think some people obsess over social causes, the way I talked about off the top, right? Social causes are a way to get really upset over things without using words like anger or sadness or fear or helplessness. Let's face it, real talk here. The word genocide packs a hell of an emotional punch. And that's the thing, people. If you're out there dropping the word genocide all over the place, you may not be in touch enough with your emotions to understand what that's doing to the receiver of the statement. You know, the idea that people are being killed just because they belong to a particular group, no other reason, right? Just they're there and genocide. That's scary. That's angering. It's sad to the point of tragic. It's disgusting. And people have the right to not feel all that stuff in the middle of lunch, right? Put it in perspective. And I'm sure some people listening are angry hearing that. And now they're insisting they're not angry. They just want to raise awareness of the plight of various peoples around the world. No, that's not the way it works. If you're throwing out the word genocide, if that's coming out of your mouth or your keyboard or your phone at least once a day, and you're not aware you're angry, sad, scared, and disgusted, something's really wrong. It's not a good idea to become inured to words like that. And inured means getting used to something unpleasant, by the way. I just like that word, inured. Inured. It's a good word, right? It sounds almost like manure, but in manure, inured, right? That's what it feels like. You're just sort of sitting in manure. But it's fine. You're used to it. You sit in manure every day, right? You're inured to manure. Anyway, moving on. The fact that we're at the point where I have to go on radio and podcast and say people struggling with their own mental health need to be able to avoid thinking about genocide because it's, scary and angering and sad and disgusting, that just shows what a mess things are. A lot of people are walking around out there not communicating their feelings and not even feeling their feelings. They're bludgeoning people with rage they can't admit they're experiencing. So it's splattering everywhere. If you don't name your feelings and put them in a place where you can see them and manage them, they're controlling you. Getting in touch with your own emotions and developing that vocabulary is essential for developing those social bonds that stave off loneliness. And that's only scratching the surface of the personal work that needs to be done to be a friend, to make friends. And like I said, this isn't just men. This is everybody. Every social group has some version of this, right? If it's not genocide, it's groomer, right? Like, it's gotten ridiculous. And I don't have time for that, because when we come back, I want to talk about how to start making friends and how I'm going to help some people make friends in person coming up. Questions, comments, concerns, Leanna at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on socials. How to meet people and make friends. After the break on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Leanna Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. I'm still talking about meeting people and making friends, and I lump these two concepts together because top 10 phrase, healthy goals are based on things you can control. And if you can control meeting people, you either go out or stay in, right? But you can only control your side of the making friends part. You can't control other people. So stop trying to control other people. Healthy goals are based on things you can control. A lot of people I work with treat socializing like a math test. And really, it's more like sports, okay? In a math test or a spelling test or a science test or any kind of test, if you only got 32% on that test, that'd be terrible. But if you have a 320 batting average, that's 0.320, that's 32%. That's an amazing batting average. Similarly, if you got 25% on a math test, that would be even worse than the 32%. But 25.1% is Andre Drummond's rebound percentage, and he's the best rebounder in basketball. NBA top rebounder. Only just over 25% of the time. Right? Socializing is more like sports. You're not going to make every basket, but if you don't take the shot, you don't get any points, right? More than that, elite athletes, they don't try to play the entire game at once. They take their plays one play at a time. And socializing is the same. And I work with a lot of people who they're systemized thinkers and they need to rehearse things. I'm like that too. So people agonize before social events, right? You're like, okay, they say this, I'm going to say this. And if they do this, I'm going to do this. You're trying to plant counters for every possible scenario. And the thing that does better than anything is stressing yourself out to the point that you end up not going because you just can't. It's too daunting, right? And believe it or not, I do this. I get socialization anxiety. I have to talk myself down from the absolute certainty that someone is going to start insulting me, mocking me, or yelling at me in the middle of a social event. Every single social event. It's part of PTSD. So what I tell myself, because I have to talk myself down from this, it's my go-to. I say you always have the option of leaving. No one is forcing you to stay. Now I make sure that, I can leave anytime I want. I don't have a ride or I'm not somebody else's ride, but still, right? Like if it's really bad, if it's people I don't know, if I'm having that stuff, you can always leave, right? The way I approach events is all I think about is getting there and walking in the door. Now, this is no small feat in Toronto with our traffic and our super messed up transit system and construction everywhere right now. But still, get there, walking in the door. That's it. That is the only thing I think about if I don't have to prep a presentation or something. And once I'm in, I observe. I do my listen twice before I talk once. I listen 20 times. I look 20 times. I don't talk. I don't move. I just observe. I don't make myself do anything right away. I take it in. I get my bearings. And then I go to the bar or the equivalent, the order counter, whatever, right? Somewhere where I get to have a short conversation with a bartender or a waiter or somebody that's more structured than just somebody who's an attendee, right? Because I'm talking to a stranger. It's starting. It's getting me over the, oh God, talking to people in a way that isn't totally open-ended. And then I take it from there, right? And if I get overwhelmed, I go to the bathroom, go into a stall, and turn in circles. I'm serious. I do this a lot. Something about the turning around, just shuffle your feet around in circles. That helps me shake off the way sound bounces in some of these, event rooms. I don't like bouncy sound. Yeah, so spin around. You'll find your tricks, right? That's mine. Other things I do are focus on learning people's names. I am bad at that, so I focus on it. Double whammy, right? Finding out things about people. Now, the trick here about finding things about other people is volunteering bits of information about yourself. Now, for me, I have a bit of an advantage there because telling people what I do for work is quite the conversation starter, right? I say, I'm a peer counselor, and they say, what's that? And I say, it's like an AA sponsor for trauma and neurodivergence. And even odds, the next thing is them going, oh, that's interesting. I have a family or friend or something who really needs someone to talk to, and then we're off to the races, right? I hear a lot about people. Now, I understand from clients that I work in IT doesn't work as well at starting conversations. Apparently, people don't know what to say when they say I work in IT, whereas I'm like, oh, what kind of IT? What's your specialty? They kind of look at me like, what? It's like, well, do you specialize in a certain operating system? Are you mainly doing tickets, or you want, there are subdivisions of IT, right? You can ask questions, right? Now, if you don't know about the subject, that's where being engaged in, current movies or TV shows or sports or video games. Manfred, yeah, Manfred, baby. Anyway, being engaged in current stuff that other people have experienced comes in real handy here, right? Chances are someone has seen Wicked by now. And like anybody who's played Dragon Age: The Veilguard is going, yeah, Manfred, listening along, right? But also, if I say, I'm currently totally obsessed with a skeleton butler named Manfred, it's from a video game, that tends to get a chuckle out of people even if they don't know what I'm talking about. Because who does that, right? But if in doubt, just show interest in what they tell you and ask follow-up questions, and that's all you need to do. Say, I don't know anything about that, but I'd really like to. Where would I start? Right? And if they say something you're sincerely interested in, if they do cool crafts or nail art, or they've got a really cool bag and you're like, where'd they get it? It's like this. And, if it's something you can say, hey, do you have this on Instagram or something? That's a great way to follow them and stay in touch. Instagram is really safe. I find people are more likely to give you their Instagram than their Facebook. I don't know why, but sometimes they'll say, hey, you're on Facebook. Hey, you're on something else. Not every conversation is going to get to this point. If it does, awesome. Remember, it's a rebound percentage, not a math test. Set your expectations accordingly. And finding places, you skipped how to find places. Okay, finding places to go is as simple as going on Facebook or Meetup and picking something. Cruise Eventbrite. See what's out there. And if you're on Facebook or Eventbrite or something like that, remember I said I'm throwing my skin in the game? I'm throwing skin in the game. Too much skeleton butler. Throwing my hat in the ring, putting some skin in the game. There we go. Check out the event I'm doing with New World Events on March 15th. We're calling it the Unbirthday Ball. It's cosplay friendly, but you don't have to wear a costume. It's Alice in Wonderland themed. You may have figured that out by the name, where we're going to help you meet people, get to know them, and socialize while you're wearing your best Mad Tea Party outfit. Now, the reason it's called the Unbirthday Party is Unbirthday Ball is exactly a month after my actual birthday. Just Google the Unbirthday Ball for details. I hope to see you there. Megan, our social media person, is going to be there too. It's going to be fun, and we're gonna help you meet people. The whole event is designed to get past the stuff you may have trouble with. So, Unbirthday Ball, see you there. When we come back, I'll talk about what to do once you decide you want to be friends with someone. Then what? Okay, we're not going to get through it all in like the 8 minutes we have left, but we'll start. Questions, comments, concerns, if you want to know more about anything I've talked about on this program or on a related issue, Leanna at nottherapyshow.com is my email. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media that are now properly monitored. Can you tell I'm happy that I have a social media person now? A great social media person. When we come back on It's Not Therapy. Now what? You want to make friends? Back after this break. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Leanna Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. And spitballing the final segment. Okay, so you've got someone's follow-up in talking about meeting people and making friends. You've met the person, right? You've got follow-up contact. Now what? People will give you a lot of rules about, oh, wait a few days. Don't seem too eager. Don't seem desperate. Don't seem desperate is great, but hey, really great meeting you is not desperate. That shows you're serious about wanting to stay in touch. That's good, right? Commenting on people's stuff on social media in an enthusiastic way. People like comments and leave a comment. Don't just hit the like button. It's not the same. You're not expressing your personality. Hitting like is such a low effort activity, right? Say what you like. Practice those compliments I talked about, right? Now, don't be commenting on absolutely everything, but just, okay, I believe in limiting social media to a specific time every day, or you do it all the time. There's so much social media out there. And so, little bits here and there seem like someone that is worth investing some time, effort, and risk in. And the way to be a person that somebody invests time, effort, and risk in is to invest time, effort, and risk within reason, right? You don't want to get too far out over your skis with cause, right? Focus on the values that are important to you and stuff like, media. Avoid politics. My God. The more politics gets bananas. You notice I have not mentioned Canadian politics at all this show. The more bananas it gets, the more I'm like, okay, I used to use politics as a point of reference for a concept all the time on this show. Now I'm like, no, people need to be able to get away from it. Right? Just don't think about it. We're all going to get through this. Can't say it's going to be fine, but we will get through it. Time will plod on no matter what happens, right? One day at a time. And that's the thing, right? Think about what you would not want someone to do when talking to you. Not what they would want, not what you would want. That's mind reading. That can lead you astray. The whole treat others the way you want to be treated. That can work, but, I found out recently that someone I know has an auditory processing challenge. And I'm like, okay, I kept going, oh, let's Zoom. Like, let's get together and talk. All that. It was sort of, and I'm like, oh, Right. Okay, so if it's better if I text you? And she's like, text is good. Okay. So yeah, I don't have to maintain that friendship so much by FaceTime. It's good to go FaceTime. It's good to go out for sushi, but that's not, for work stuff, no, the in-person meetings are not best. Little things like that, right? Don't assume, but do think, I would hate it if somebody really wanted to talk to me and didn't reach out because they thought they were bothering me, because they're not bothering me. If I don't want to respond, I'm just not going to respond. So if you think that, if you wouldn't want someone to not contact you because they thought they were bothering you, don't think that about other people. Instagram comments, like social media comments, as long as they're not, too personal. Like, hey, I saw you with this thing. I see you're going to this other thing. I will follow you everywhere. Like, don't do that, right? That's not Manfred cool. Manfred picks his moments, right? Be like Manfred. Be cool. Skeleton Butler cool. But, just, they say be yourself. But that's true, right? But be the best version of yourself. Be the version of yourself that gets real excited over skeleton butlers in video games and just says it to the world, instead of being the person who's riddled with anxiety and worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. Because remember, 25%, lousy on a math test, but a great rebound average. And friendships, conversations, it's all about the rebound, right? You're gonna have disagreements. You're gonna clash. You're gonna put your foot in your mouth sometimes. And it's just a part of being human. And if you have compassion for yourself, it's gonna be a lot easier to have compassion for others. But what compassion for yourself, top 10 phrase, self-esteem cannot exist without self-compassion. What that does is allows you to put your foot in your mouth and make faux pas. And another thing I have to actively stop myself from doing is running over something I said at a party or something. Go, why did you say that? Stupid, right? I actually have to stop myself and go, it's over. You can't do anything about it. Either write the person and apologize for it if you think you have to, or just move forward. You can't do anything about it. That's what self-compassion does, right? I've put my foot in my mouth more times than I can count. And we're out of time. This show cannot go on anymore. Leanna at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media. That is going to be much better now. See you at the Unbirthday Ball, March 15th. Hope you're there. Remember, Google Unbirthday Ball, the Unbirthday Ball, to check it out. Your crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you.